All right, greetings. That's loud. Welcome back to Blackburn News, where everything is connected. It's hard to do a fade out on StreamYard. Finding out because the volume goes from like 75% to zero in about 3 clicks. So I don't know why that is. It's a little weird. Um, I'll find a way around that probably. But how y'all doing? Welcome. Yeah, back live streaming today. Sorry, just I don't know. I was just feeling some kind of way the last couple of days, so I was just trying some other things. But glad to be back to the live streams. We're live on Callin, Rockfin, and on YouTube. I don't know how long we'll stay on YouTube. But how y'all doing? All right, so lots to talk about. And on top of all that, Denver Attaway posted a really good link that I was reading right before the show about a Russian billionaire killed in a helicopter crash, and apparently he's tied to the crypto world. I don't know. There are some weird things going on in crypto, in the crypto space, and I have my suspicions. I've had some suspicions about some things going on that aren't necessarily novel. I think some other people have had some suspicions. There's all kinds of weird thoughts around crypto, like it's all a scam, bro, or it's all a, Ponzi. Okay, look at, the regular financial system is a Ponzi as well. So crypto. I actually think that the intentions of crypto are good and solid, and I think that they're right, that it's the right thing. Crypto is a way to decentralize finance around the world, right? So to get out of the traditional markets. The problem is that the powers that be like the traditional markets the way they are, right? They like to control the Ponzi. They don't like crypto circumventing this. They don't like crypto. Oh, I saw a really good. Somebody tweeted that the FTX scandal is a way for uh, the government to get back all the money that they gave out during the pandemic. And I was like, oh, that's pretty right on. They don't like crypto circumventing their monopoly on finance, the central bank monopoly on finance. They don't like it. So I have long suspected that, not very nice players. It's been known for a long time that not very nice players are involved with crypto, but I think as of recently, it's become obviously much more overt that somebody is messing in the crypto world. Somebody doesn't like it, and they're trying to. And on top of that, the crypto world, just like the regular financial Ponzi, attracts and supports and gives leniency and means to very bad actors and on the planet financially, right? And the crypto world allows people to do that as well. But we'll look at this really quickly. Russian billionaire 53 is killed in helicopter crash near Monaco in latest crypto mystery death after another passenger canceled at the last minute. Oh, what does that sound like? I wonder what that sounds like. Sounds like something else. Anyways, Russian billionaire has become the latest cryptocurrency man. I mean, all businessmen are crypto. For one thing, let's also get this straight. Cryptocurrency has infiltrated the regular financial markets, right? So almost, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who isn't involved in cryptocurrency, right? So it's all everything's all mixed up. Stock market, traditional finance, cryptocurrency, everything's all mixed up now. So it's not a lot of, it's like, oh, he's in the crypto space. Well, everybody's in the crypto space. JP Morgan's in the crypto space. Everybody's in the it's not like so weird and different. Cryptocurrency businessman to die in mysterious circumstances after his helicopter crash in good weather near Monaco. Entrepreneur Vyacheslav Taran, 53, died after the helicopter plunged near the resort town of Villefranche-sur-Mer after taking off from Lausanne in Switzerland. Apparently, it was good weather. It was nice weather. It happened in good weather. Happened in good, clear weather after another passenger reportedly canceled last minute. Mystery now surrounds the billionaire's death. 35-year-old French pilot was also killed. Alleged he was linked to the SVR Foreign Espionage Agency and was responsible for laundering Russian funds through a system of cryptocurrency operations. Well, there you go. Laundering Russian funds. or other fun, right? Just pick a country, name a country. Sorry if I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I just wanted to shout this out. And Taran is the third cryptocurrency entrepreneur to die unexpectedly in recent weeks. It comes just days after businessman Tianten Kullander, 30, died in his sleep. I don't even know anything about that story. Didn't even hear that. But we know the other one. The man that died in Puerto Rico. Nikolai Mushegian. And I suspect, this is just my opinion. This is my opinion. I suspect that there are people out there that are intentionally trying to mess with the cryptocurrency markets or mess with the cryptocurrency world because they would like to see it fail. It wouldn't be that hard because people already have so much skepticism. You know, it was the whole thing, 2 or 3 years ago. Oh my God, cryptocurrency is so bad for the environment. Right? They're putting out all these, they're just really trying to, and now FTX, right? So cryptocurrency is on shaky ground as it is. Right? It doesn't have a good reputation already. All right, we'll go on from that. That was very interesting. So thanks for posting, Denver. We're just covering a bunch of things today. Hopefully they tie all together, or they just are stories to be knowledgeable about in your daily travels in the world. Jeff Gibbs is a great Facebook post. I rarely see things on Facebook that I think are cool, but he says everyone wants their slice of the pie, but there is no pie. There is only planet Earth. There's no pie, right? The pie is a fictional pie. The pie is a metaphorical, obviously. It's a supposed pie that exists for everyone. But honestly, and you can argue it both ways. You could say that the pie is really big and some people are taking most of the pie and leaving very little pie for the rest of the people. That's true. That's true. Or you could say, in terms of planetary destruction, you could say the pie is getting smaller all the time. And we're expecting more pie, right? As we expand, we want more pie. And the reality is that there's less pie available every single year because we're taking up all the resources, right? We've used them all up. And I guess with that, we'll jump to this. I'll go back to these other stories that I thought I was going to cover first, but we'll jump to this. I don't know about this. I saw this earlier, and I just want to talk about it a little bit. Some people are saying this doesn't make any sense, and some people think this is an interesting post. Hold on. Kameshwari Kate says pie is in the sky. Indeed it is. But I also like a really good cherry pie. Good Lord, how I love cherry pie. So Mark Bevis tweeted this out. Tweeted it at me. Thanks, Mark. Doomer alert. Study as yet not peer-reviewed shows car production will cease before 2030 and no one will be able to drive after 2027. So that statement alone in this article makes me go, huh? If nobody can drive after 2027, why is car production still going on? Are they talking about self-driving cars? Are they talking about only taxis and lifts? Are they talking public transportation cars? I don't know. Maybe I missed that. Well, I actually want to kind of look at this tweet a little bit. But this is kind of, in line with like the Club of Rome studies, stuff like that. Somebody says, end of world oil production in 2027. This is crazy talk, a reincarnation of the Hills Group, discombobulation of thermodynamics, all oil industry dynamics, and voodoo. I don't know. Let's look at the article and see what they have to say. Rob Mielkarski is a Canadian friend of mine with a great blog called Undenial. His latest post, 2 different perspectives, same conclusion. Modern lifestyles will end soon. And I guess this is why this video is titled All a Distraction, because well, some of the premise of this is I think pretty spot on. I'd say, part of the premise of this is pretty on target. Right. We have all this political, social media, whatever you want to call it. The intrigue of what is going on in the world, obviously, in the moment, is all very interesting. But if modern lifestyles as we know it are over and by the end of the decade, well, then not much of what we're talking about is going to matter, right? Twitter's not going to matter. What's going on your cell phone probably is not going to matter, or the internet. It won't matter as much. What's going to matter is like, where am I getting my next meal? How are we going to heat our house this winter? Or are we heating our house at all, ever, again? Oh, Denver. I hope you get that toothache taken care of. I've had that before. I hate that. All right, let's keep going. It's must-read material. A new paper by physicist Dr. Burnt Warm. That's an interesting name. Uses 5 different methods, 4 relying on economics and 1 on thermodynamics, to predict when the end of oil production and motor vehicle production will occur. All 5 methods roughly converge on 2030 as the year when modern lifestyles end. Now, anyone following this blog will know I've been saying for a long time that 2020 was crunch time and 2030 is shit hits fan time. Anyways, here are a few excerpts from the paper. This graph, real quick. Brent Maxima, return on investment, oil production, etc., going down. Brent Maxima is the green. Brent Minima is the puke green. Brent up to 2020. It's the crude oil price, right? Remember, it just totally went downhill to 2020, and then it's starting to spike up again. and we'll talk about why that's happening. The author interprets the line of maxima as the oil price that industrialized countries, maxima is the oil price that the industrialized countries can afford to the maximum while maintaining their lifestyle. He interprets the line of minima as the price of oil that the producing countries need to keep their economies running. In mid-2019, the author noticed this crossroads and expected a crisis in 2020. Although he was completely unclear what kind of crisis it would be, he didn't expect corona. The inhabitants of the industrialized countries are now realizing that their lifestyle is at risk. The line of the maxima will reach the zero line, 0% BOE. Around, that doesn't mean blue ocean event, by the way. Around mid-2027. From then on, the inhabitants of the industrialized countries can no longer afford oil without giving up many things of daily life. The demand of the oil producers is then 13 to 14% BOE. These two values are incompatible. Result, the extrapolation of oil prices shows that from 2022, the lifestyle in the industrialized countries will degrade, and that after 2027, the inhabitants of the industrialized countries will hardly be able to pay for oil or its products. The fall in the price of crude oil, it sounds basically like peak oil, right? Is in a nutshell. The fall in the price of crude oil from 2008 to 2020, with the extreme price increases since 2021, is an absolute alarm signal. Soon there will be no more crude oil affordable, no matter for which economy in the world. Summary: procedures 1, 2, and 4 are extrapolations of economic data of the past. Method 3 is a link between oil prices and car production. Method 5 is a calculation based on the law of physics. The 5 calculation method results in number 1, end of world motor vehicle production between 2031 and 2034. Okay, so sure. End of oil production in 2027. That sounds pretty wild, right? End of oil production. All oil production in 2027. End of worldwide. I don't know, what are we living on the oil already produced from 2027 to 2034? I don't really understand it. I don't get that part. It doesn't add up to me on any level, because if oil production stops, everything stops, like on a dime. Like nothing continues. I think we should know that. If oil production stops, everything stops. Oh, that is all. Okay, sorry. Trying to go back to this. Where did it go? Did it disappear? Here we go. Anyways, it's not that long of an article. The results are not the same, but in the end, same thing comes out. All 5 procedures show that vehicle production and oil production will continue to collapse in the coming years. Vehicle production will disappear first, oil production later, as the world's existing fleet will continue to consume crude oil, even if no new vehicles are added. I still don't get it. It is to be expected that the crude oil production will decrease slowly until 2027, and after that, very fast. Oil will be extremely expensive by 2027 at the latest. And here's something, and I'm not going to play this part, but well, there's somebody's thoughts on that. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but it kind of lines up with the general consensus on when things fall apart. Again, I'm not rooting for this. I'm not like, this is, it's not going to be good. And I want to say, is this the reason, Darn if I missed a tweet here. I missed grabbing a tweet. Well, look at this. Again, this is due to the war and sanctions and the war and the war and the sanctions. Not necessarily to oil production, although, so this could be said to be manufactured by, something that's going on in the world. But is, this a harbinger of things to come. Just in, German state of North Rhine-Westphalia declares financial emergency due to energy crisis. Financial emergency due to energy crisis. He posts an article, but it's in Dutch. I think. Well, and then we've seen, threats of UK having some issues with oil. But I say all this to say that, of course, is this a reason why we see this concerted effort to kind of control a collapse or control things as they collapse? Like I have no doubt that the powers that be understand that something weird is coming, something weird and wild and woolly, and they want to control it, or maybe even get ahead of it. And we could be talking about the climate crisis, or we could be, the climate crisis, economic crisis, or the combination thereof. The powers that be see what's coming, and maybe I've actually pushed this idea out there, and other people, only on this channel, maybe not on other channels, other people have also kind of said the same thing. You could say that the WEF is evil, or they're bad people trying to do bad things. Is there actually a chance that maybe they see what's coming and they're trying to kind of lessen? They could actually be lessening the blow. Maybe it's intentional or unintentional, right? But if you're creating these shortages, or you're creating these crises, and getting into people's minds like things are going to change, things won't be the same again. You could even go further and say you will own nothing and be happy, or you will eat the bugs, or whatever, however, all the tropes, right, for what's coming. Could they be, engineering kind of a softer landing into what's they see what's happening, they see what's coming this way, our way. I know this is a weird idea, and maybe I'm not making sense at this moment, but they're engineering somewhat of a softer landing while trying to control things, as they're going down. I don't know. Some combination of that, right? They see that the climate is going to just, it's going to unravel. The biosphere is going to unravel. Things are going to fall apart, and things are going to get bad. And they're just getting out in front of it, right? Instead of like everybody running into all right, that's it, it's all over kind of scenario. And long time ago, I'll read this. Denver Attaway says, there's a chance, Kevin, but the most likely scenario is they are priming the world to adopt the Chinese I agree with that. Chinese technocratic model of social control and continuous monitoring. I actually covered that in my video yesterday. I'm sorry about the sound quality on that. It was really frustrating because sometimes I have sound issues. I can't hear them in my headphones. Only people who are listening tell me. But I did the whole video, and then I heard that the sound was screwed up, and I was like, I have no time to actually do this video again. Like, that's it. It took me a lot of time to just get to that point. I was like, well, upload away. Anyways, even though the sound is bad, I urge you to watch the video from yesterday. I think it was pretty good. Right. They want, yes, they want to get everybody on this social credit control, vaccine passport, Weibo, control system, right? Sure. And I'm not saying that I think that that's good. I'm not saying that, but on some levels, it could be a way to, minimize just everybody, running into a wall or running for the hills or running over each other in their Mad Max trucks, right? I don't know. Reflect the Sun says Saudi Arabia has broken ground on Neom, a 100-mile city with mirrored sides. Their plan for a soft landing? Also, mirrors work to reflect the sun and heat. Yeah, maybe, right? You're going to see, no doubt you're going to see, and again, people talk about, the smart cities and all that stuff, but the thing is you're going to have a tough time living outside of certain areas, right? Certain parts of the planet, because a lot of places are going to be uninhabitable. And you're going to have a tough time. Like, you're going to see these mega cities, these kind of safe zones, right? These controlled biosphere type construction things going up very quickly in the next 5 years. It's going to, this is a trial run, right, for Saudi Arabia, but in the next 5 years is going to be a lot of this stuff going on, right? Because people are going to go, oh yeah, we can't, we actually can't make it through a year without a extreme weather event that's going to wipe out our city or our crops or whatever, right? So we're going to need to build some kind of like fortress, either underground or above ground kind of constructs where people can live. And if you're going to, if you go outside, I mean, it sounds dystopian, but kind of what we're looking forward to in the near future, where you're not going to be able to really make it outside of these cities. Gene, when people are in a panic, they will accept fascism. Absolutely. Yes, they will. I was just listening to or reading something about the Milgram experiment, right? Where you had doctors and lab coats and they got a bunch of test subjects, right? The people that were, told to electrocute their friends or the people that they know in the other room, and but for the good of society, for the good of the world, right? You got to do this. Oh yeah. While people were screaming in the other room, they were actors, by the way, but they were screaming bloody murder. Sorry, I got to do it. It's for, it's for your own good, right? People will totally do that. I don't know. Well, life is definitely going to look very strange in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Again, I don't necessarily want that to be true. Ken Lundgren says Musk wants to monopolize AGI. What's AGI? AI into master of the universe, control over all humanity. Well, and this is, again, part of the whole, looks like the plan, whatever the plan is, whatever the end goal of this plan is, more control in a world falling apart. The Dutch government will pay out farmers to shut down up to 3,000 farms in order to allow and to follow EU environmental rules. So this is happening. It's been happening, right? This is from today. Brussels set for revolt as Netherlands Rutte plans to shut down farms over EU laws. Dutch farmers are in for a shock as the government has announced it will shut down between 2,000 and 3,000 farms across the country to cut on nitrogen levels as required under EU climate rules. According to an early draft of the plan, farmers will receive 120% of their farm's value, which sounds pretty nice. But who's going to be doing the farming? Where's the food going to come from? How you got 3,000 farms shutting down, so where's the food going to come from? These are all really good questions to be asking. Who's growing the food? Where's the food coming from? Is the government growing the food? Is corporations growing the food? Are they growing the food underground? Are they growing the food, up in satellite pods, like Silent Running? Where are they growing the food? Is everybody eating 3D printed meat? What's happening? I don't know. Excuse me. A document leaked in September revealed that the Dutch government was thinking about buying out farmers in a compulsory manner. The plans were dismissed by the government as a last resort scenario, but they sparked controversy among the industry and now seem to be confirmed. But there will be, of course, as they say, there's going to be a lot of revolt around this, as there should be. Cool. We're going to take a call. Timothy, I got you. I'm going to take your call in just one moment. Checking the coffees. No coffees as of yet, but that's a really good way to support the channel is buymeacoffee.com/Black Bear News, or tips on Rockfin are also super great, which I did get a tip on Rockfin. Steph C says, thanks, Kevin. Great topics as usual. Thank you, Steph C. I appreciate you. Appreciate the support. You can also support me on Patreon at Black Bear News. All right, let's take this call. How's it going, Timothy?
Hi. I'm okay. I was. I wanted to react.
Yeah.
To what you were saying about the Dutch farming predicament, so to speak.
Sure.
Maybe another perspective. It's last week, Fleur Ali and me watched a documentary from Dutch television.
Okay.
About the food system in Holland. And basically, 80% of the food that is produced in Holland, in the Netherlands, is for export. So 80% of the beef, 80% of the pork, and so on. So if you say if we close 3,000 farms, I don't know what percentage of farms that is.
Yeah.
To have environment, that will impact the exports, of course, and that's where the big money is. And that's where the resistance to this policy. Apart from the exports business,
yeah,
I think they are behind the protests. Of course, the farmers are.
Well, of course, yeah. If you're doing it for a livelihood, if you're making money off of it, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a big difference here in Belgium and Holland. It's been the policy from the governments here, export, and now they see the system is buckling a bit, and they have to backtrack that, and that's a bit the blowback of them, I think.
Okay.
So you have to make this hard decision for agriculture, but for the conserve biodiversity and so on.
Sure.
It's a good decision.
Right. Okay. I mean, I like that take. And I think, that's something to think about, right? Like, we are causing a lot of damage to the planet from agriculture, industrial agriculture,
Yeah,
and whatnot.
and that's
And
what's going. In Holland, here in Belgium too, we export a lot of food,
right.
and sometimes it's crazy. At the time Russia invaded Crimea, there were sanctions, and the Belgian farmers were saying, "Oh no, now we can't export pears and apples to Russia." But
Right.
we only have trees, apple trees and pear trees in Russia. What I mean,
Right.
and there's plenty more of those examples.
Sure.
So
Well, so I mean, I think that just shows the complexity of the problem, right? So
yeah,
like we are doing damage by our farming methods, right? The nitrogen, the emissions are actually a real problem. So they're not making that up.
yeah,
And I asked where they're going to grow the food. How will the loss of these exports affect the countries that are bringing in the food from there? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I guess you'd have to quantify that somehow.
yeah.
But if we're talking about switching over to a hyper local economy, then you wouldn't necessarily be growing food for export, would you? You'd
Yeah,
be
that's
growing
it.
food for your immediate community surroundings, and there wouldn't be a thing called uh, long distance food shipping. There would just be
and
growing food.
nitrogen would be a
Yeah,
problem, but because farming would be much more small scale.
yeah, yeah.
We
Which
also
which
saw in
I'm
the
which I'm a fan of, right? Small scale farming. So I don't know. That's good. Thank you, Timothy, for bringing that up.
yeah, Fleur wants to say in the documentary we saw some innovation also. They grow food indoors.
Yeah, I actually saw that same documentary. I think I played it on the show. There's a in Holland. There's a huge greenhouses, and
Yeah,
they grow a ton of food in these greenhouses. They can grow it year round.
yeah,
It's not affected by the cold or the heat, and they grow food all year round, and they grow more food than they would grow on a regular farm. So on some ways, they're making use of the space and a better use of the space, and
okay.
they're growing more food. And I don't know. Yeah, it was pretty. And it's probably the way that we'll have to grow food in the future, anyways, because with the climate changing so severely, you're not going to be able to grow food outdoors in a lot of places
Yeah,
because the
it's
seasons are all out of whack. So you're going to have to grow food in a controlled environment, anyways. I don't know. Well, yeah, that's cool. Thanks, Timothy. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
yeah, no problem.
Um,
Bye.
bye bye. That was good. Good perspective on that. Right. So, these things that people are calling like the evil WEF and the people of the EU, again, I don't necessarily think they're always the greatest, but sometimes you can do things for the right reasons. I think, and I don't think like the libertarian, less smaller government way is the way, right? You actually have to have. These are the same people that are often like law and order types. It's like, well, laws are in place to protect people, conceivably, right? If they're good laws, right? There are bad laws, there are good laws, right? Good laws are in place to protect people or protect your property or whatever, your rights. And if somebody breaks the law, they're supposed to face the consequences, right? Or if you steal, embezzle, do illegal things, right? So as far as like if you're going to save the planet or if you're going to not toxify if you're not going to allow big business to just go and spew toxins into the air, or into the water, or into the land, well, you have to have laws, right? And you have to actually enforce the laws, right? So, there's a disconnect between the people that like law and order and don't like regulation. It's like, well, regulations are laws, and you actually want to enforce the laws. If the laws are righteous, you want to make sure that people don't break those laws. And so, I don't know. It's just good to think about. Uh, Good to think about what it is you actually believe in, right? Like think it all the way through, maybe. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was a good call from Timothy. I have questions about this particular thing that they're doing. However, on the whole, I probably would be supportive. I would also like to see, well, regulation of the airline industry, or why aren't we seeing airline businesses, airlines being put out of business, or car makers being put out of business, or right? You're throwing farmers out of business. Okay, maybe that maybe that makes sense. But what about all the other things that are polluting the planet? What about all the you know there seems to be a hole in the logic there. All right. I'm going to take one more call right now. William, I see you, William. Well, you know what? I'll just take these calls and we'll hope for the best. Hopefully, what I mean by that is hopefully I'll get to this other stories that I had. Or I might just leave these other stories for tomorrow because that's fine too. Joseph, how you doing?
Am I on okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if you're going to have time for this, but the whole mirror thing, that's a good discussion to have because
Okay.
that uncovers a lot of confusion in how, and again, I don't know who's doing what intentionally, right? Because there's a lot of money behind all this, and people get biased with money, and you get attached to your own research as well.
Sure.
I mean, I have my own issues with that, but not the money part, but being attached to my own research. So the mirror thing, you can't bounce heat through an atmosphere and have heat leave the atmosphere.
I always,
The, the,
I often wondered about that idea too. The mirror project, right?
it's the most frustrating thing because the people behind the Mirrors Project are not stupid people,
If we're
and
talking
they
about
seem really well
thermodynamics,
intentioned.
right?
Yes, right, exactly. And I get so flustered trying to have a decent conversation because they just throw up the underlying research that went into atmospheric science for the sake of climate change as their reasons for believing their own research. And it's therein that lies the flaw where they ignored certain components of thermodynamics.
Well, what
And
about
I don't know.
let's I want to stay there for a second. What about albedo? I mean, albedo is a
Okay.
thing that you want to have, which works somewhat in the same way, right? Reflection.
And that's the same confusion. Yes and no. It certainly works for whatever's underneath the thing reflecting and partially the thing itself. But think of it. So, so let's talk ice, since that's the big conversation with albedo.
Right.
If you're bouncing energy off of ice, the ice is still getting impacted by energy. So
Sure.
it's coming in at one frequency and it's leaving at another frequency, barring a certain specific funky angles where you get more reflected energy, which is what mirrors is based on. But that's a wash when you're passing through the atmosphere, which is moving and full of moisture. The atmosphere is virtually all moisture,
But
and all of that absorbs wavelength.
right. Well, can you
So,
separate
but
I mean, I guess maybe we could talk about just radiation, right? Um does radiation necessarily have to include heat, or is heat a byproduct of the radiation?
heat is a byproduct of the interaction of more than one wave of energy. If you break it all down to wiggles of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So every solid object, every moist object, every frozen object, every warm body,
Right.
all of those have an intrinsic signature in wavelength, which is a conglomerate of everything that makes that body. And so when you hit it with anything, light or water or a rock, it changes that to be a combination of the two things that are interacting.
Right.
It could be a radio wave. and you're going to get a compression or an elongation on either side. And the momentum of the whole is conserved. So with the Earth, it's the whole atmosphere that's jiggling. You can't push one molecule without the farthest molecule away feeling it in some probably unmeasurable way.
Sure.
But it does, the butterfly effect. So what goes out into space is a lower residue. The whole Earth has a heat signature, and the sun is providing a microwave energy blanket, and the Earth absorbs so much of that, and it emits a total vibration of our whole from the core out. You don't change that really. You're just always going to have the same ratio in and the same ratio out. It's just what happens in the middle.
Right. Well,
And in the middle, it's hot.
Where CO2 comes in, right? The trapping of the radiation.
So, yes, and no, you're giving the atmosphere more stuff to hold more heat.
Right.
And it's going to pump that into the oceans.
Right.
And so the more heat you put in the atmosphere, the higher the rate of pumping goes into the oceans. And they miss that when they calculate their change with a lot of stuff. It's all going into the ocean, not space. Space, we're seeing more intense red. Well, sure, we're getting hotter overall, not just in spots, everywhere. It's like to heat, the atmosphere is like a solid conductor, and the ocean is more of a solid conductor. Ice is something that cools down the air and the water that's around it, making the air and the water around the ice a better conductor of volumes of heat. So you see albedo as being a function of ice reflecting heat, but where's it going? It's going into the highest capacitance, which is the coldest zones around it. And above the ice, is there a colder zone of temperature or a warmer zone? And that's a dynamic of the whole, not just the albedo of the ice. And that's very complicated. That's why Jim Massa does all those really hard videos.
Right. He does have great videos, for sure.
Yes. Yes. And he's the guy that should be having these conversations because he's more experienced at teaching with the language.
Right.
And to get him on board with the albedo conversation that you're having.
Well, so
that's another twist.
To go back to the albedo, I guess the problem with losing the albedo, the reflection, is that you absorb more heat.
Right? Well, so you aren't absorbing it in the right location.
Right. So it's serving the albedo is serving a purpose, which is
along with the volume of ice, right? The ice.
Well, the ice is also the ice also does its thing too. So I guess that's the thing that's missing from the mirror.
There you go.
Right. The thing that's missing from the mirror is the absorption of heat into the ice itself,
or under it.
Right. Because the ice is actually collecting some of that heat energy, right, and transferring it somewhere else. So.
And when it's a harmonic with the twist of the Earth, the spin of the Earth, and the currents of the ocean, it all works to be a cooling, effective mechanism for the incoming solar energy. But the heat when you lose the ice, the incoming solar energy is no longer being dealt with, and the heat that life produces, or rather humans produce, because life is sort of neutral. That's the big thing about life. All organic life is really, really each calorie of energy is used so many times, like we talked about in our last conversation. That's really efficient with heat. So even though life may not have the same albedo as ice, it utilizes the caloric quality of energy in consumption by radiating much less heat than the energy it performs in its doings of life. If that makes any sense at all. So
yeah, you're a little muffled. You're a little muffled, man. Joseph.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, this probably gets too involved, but yes.
No. This is all good though. This is all really good.
Oh, you're okay with this? Good.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is like breaking it down to to understanding what the problem is and what the problem with the answers, I guess. What people think the answers are.
Right. So in physics with albedo, if we're going to do it in theory style, you have to run it through multiple ways, and it doesn't appear that the way that you talk about a particle or a photon as having mass. And that part gets left out of the conversation in climate science for some reason. And in a very small lab controlled condition, it really has no effect. The numbers are so small. But when you're talking about the whole atmosphere and the volume of solar energy coming in and the movement of the earth, those are very large numbers.
Right.
And yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean, so the thing I wanted to ask you is, so what do you have an idea for what might be a better solution? Or is it, obviously a predicament, but.
Well, it's a huge thing, and solution is a real predicament in itself, saying that word. I'm afraid to say solution. I think there are many, many alternatives to how we live. It's just all the heat's got to go where it should go, which is into the earth. So the energy we're using trying to get rid of heat and utilize energy to do it should just be something adiabatic. Like we can use materials that we have on board to under your house. Efforts to control heat in your house rather than
redirect heat, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then build up, like you could landscape around your dwelling with terraced stuff of earth that reduce your need to do anything at all.
It kind of goes back to the hydrological cycles kind of ideas, out there, and right, on some levels, just
absolutely
absorbing, right, the heat and turning it into, you're turning it into energy in other ways, but
or water,
right,
and water right over your house,
right. Well, anybody a lot of people already understand this stuff, but if you want to find out about it, like Walter Jane and I don't know, there's other people out there I can't remember the names of, but Walter Jane is a good one. He's got interesting videos about.
Oh yeah, there's a couple people who have really built some. I mean, they went overboard, with just earth products, and completely with the same idea, but that's only on a real small scale. So where you are with all those people, in the I-5 corridor, basically, if you're going to have to work with your neighbors, which that's a huge hurdle.
Right.
How do you get 4 or 5 neighbors to work as a community to do all that stuff we just said?
Exactly.
I don't know.
It seems hard, but it's like if people are, on one level it seems really hard, but I don't know. I can see that on a like a gut level, people really understand what's happening, and they kind of understand what the answer is, right? And so, there are a lot of people out there interested in getting off the grid and doing their own farming, and working with nature. Well, working with nature more. And I had actually somebody called into the show a few weeks or months ago, talking about how they were doing that kind of farming in Colorado, like in Boulder, where they were, creating, kind of, I don't know, new growth, right? Planting trees, but not just trees, but like kind of I don't know if it was permaculture, but kind of like recreating, creating like these new areas of growth, like in Colorado, that we're going to like basically do like a hydrological cycle type thing, like Walter Jane idea. And,
so like rewilding,
like rewilding, I guess you could call it permaculture. I don't know. There's so many different like concepts out there, but rewilding is a good start, but regreening, rewilding, planting.
So it could be really beautiful.
Planting native plants and just like, and letting nature kind of do its course, but.
Sure. So to feed everybody in crowded areas, you're going to have to do the same idea, but in layers where you're literally building up earth around you, and what you're building up around you is the rewilded and the feeding part of your environment.
Right.
And you could end up with a nature walk all along the coastline,
right,
where everybody's feeding everybody. That would be a dreamlike outcome.
Sure. And there are examples of this actually being done in other parts of the world, right? There's examples of where it has failed, right? But there are examples where it has actually worked, right? There are.
Well, obviously, the more that are involved, the more successful it's probably going to be.
So, but these are the things that, people don't get told that this is actually the way to to fix climate change. Like some people are hip to this and some people are not. But on a mass scale, right? Like who is talking about this stuff?
So do you run into this when you're out and about and have these kinds of conversations with random Californians?
Hardly ever, but some people get it. Like I've actually was part of a group that wanted to build like an intentional community, and they were talking about doing like aquaponics or different kinds of like, small scale, like local, kind of ways to grow food. It didn't go anywhere because it's hard to get stuff like that going, right? It's just
it really is.
It was a cool idea, and this was like a few years ago, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I was of course I was interested in this, but it was just really hard to get past the it sounds really cool to talk about stage, but
well, here's a tidbit to go along with that then. So one of the most challenged things on earth are aquatics, right? Fish are
Right.
dying off far faster than most things. And aquatic plants, they consume CO2 and other things and produce much more soil and oxygen than terrestrial plants at a much faster rate. I'm still trying. The whole idea was to start with an indoor semi-tropical stream that self-sustains.
Right.
And with that comes a lot of oxygen, which is what people and everything else is going to really need in the coming future.
Right.
So it works right into what this conversation we're having. And those dwellings that we're talking about, imagine hooking them all up where there's a continual tropical stream down the center or on the peripherals of the entire thing for 1,000 miles of countryside or shoreline.
Yep.
And everybody benefits.
Yep. But it's kind of it's about everybody understanding that's the direction to go in, and I don't think actually that's impossible. I just think it's a matter of
you just made my whole year if that's true. I mean, hearing anybody say that is wonderful.
I mean, it's about communication and about cooperation and communication, right? So if people really started getting together and doing stuff like that, imagine how quickly in our current like political system, how quickly that would be shut down or say, oh, we can't do it. Oh, like whatever.
Well, so someone in the political system has to see a working example, really, right? To be convinced.
Yeah, but they also have to actually be in the service of something good, right? Like they get, if they're in the political system right now, actually doesn't serve things that are good for people in the community, right? They serve their corporate masters, and oftentimes the reality is like those interests are in direct conflict with the good of the people or the planet. So you actually have, I don't know.
Kevin, what do you think?
You have to change people, and you have to change the political system at the same time.
How do you do that?
I don't know, man. Keep talking about it, I guess. I know. I right now that's the only thing. Is the only thing I can think of is just people communicating. Right. It's kind of like one person to the next person to the next person. It's kind of like AA in a way. It's a really good example of how things actually work really well in a very democratic way. Right, because I'm a former alcoholic, or I am an alcoholic. I guess you can't say you're a former alcoholic, but I used to go to AA meetings. And AA, the structure of AA is like really cool because there's no government, there's no leaders, there's nothing, there's no money, there's no anything. There's just people that are interested in doing the right thing for themselves and helping other people do the right thing. So it's like it's got to have that kind of like organic. AA is the only thing I know is like truly like an organic, like helpful community. That's not like,
and they're,
that's not like they don't have any. There's no ulterior motives, right? Not even you can't even say that about churches. Often, I'm not saying all churches. Some churches are very.
I'm with you. No,
but
you're right.
Most churches have. There's money and there's leaders and there's, motives involved. The only example of a true church that I know of. So like if we could do an AA model for all other subjects, beyond alcoholism,
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
And you could actually start the community we just talked about around the meeting place for the AA.
Right.
As part of the programs initiative.
So it's got to just be, meetings, local organic meetups where it's just, people getting together and talking about it, and then it just kind of grows into something else.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. All right, man. I got to let you go because it's getting a little long, but thanks for the
Yo, thank you very much.
Right.
Appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. We're going to take, William, I'm going to take your call in a second, but I'm just going to stop right here for 1 second and say, you guys, Slava is not here to have a conversation with anybody. He's here to try and like muck things up and disrupt people. So I'm going to from now on ignore Slava, and I would appreciate y'all if you did the same. Or I could block him. I don't know. But he's not here he's not here for any like real purpose. Okay. He's not here to have a conversation. So just want y'all to know that. Just stop addressing him. Just, that's all. Or I could just block him. Whatever you guys want. But I just really don't like the energy, Slava. Not at all. I don't appreciate you being here. Okay. So I was going to talk about the reason why my thumbnail was Elon Musk is we were going to talk about Twitter and him building his own fund. And it is, all a distraction. All of this is a distraction. So maybe we'll talk about Elon Musk tomorrow. We'll leave everything as it is. I'm going to take this call from William. Okay, guys. And we're going to talk to William a little bit, and that'll be it. And we'll move some things to the show tomorrow. All right. William, how you doing?
Hey, Kev, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, man. How you doing? Long time. No speak.
Yeah. Great conversation today. It's interesting for me to listen to the physics of like what I call reverse engineering some kind of solution.
Yeah.
But if we don't start at the roots, we're constantly shoveling sand against the tide. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to discount and dismiss any innovation.
No, totally.
And you and I have explored that a lot. So like, and you touched on with the last call a lot of that stuff, and I appreciated that, And so I'm not going to, get into that right now, but I did want to say two things you mentioned in previous rooms that I want to quick drop. This won't be a long call. Is I do order a bamboo toilet paper that comes in a bamboo packaging. So, you know what I mean? So
there
are options. Remember you talked about people can use hemp toilet paper, but it comes in plastic wrap. That's it's not the only option. I think it was Panda. So it's been so long since I ordered it. By the way, the stuff is tough as nails. Like I only need like 3 sheets. I can even blow my nose into it and not blow a hole through it. Yeah, I'm telling you, this stuff is incredibly tough. But so I use a lot less, and I don't have to overlap it. So what? I don't get into too much information here. You know what I mean? It holds up. Let's just say it's strong. Okay, so my fingers don't break through it.
Good to know. Right.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. The other thing is, I'm glad to hear you talk about 12-step because I have experience with that and recovery. And a comment you made a while ago that I just wanted to touch on. That, of course, the idea of one way to get over trauma is just get over it.
Yeah.
I that I have to say, I am a survivor of incest, and triggers happen.
Yeah.
Like when my parents got sick and they died, and I tried to help them. I ended up in psych ward, suicidal. What I'm trying to say is complex post-traumatic stress disorder so severe it caused a pituitary endocrine disease called Cushing's. Okay. So I'm a tough guy, right? I made it to the NFL without steroids. I got signed by the Pats in '85, CFL in '86.
Yeah.
When they went to their cup. So it's not about being hard or tough. Those unconscious triggers, I was in and out of psych wards twice suicidal. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is it doesn't really work that way. And that what I mean to say is maybe for some people, the way to get over trauma is just like ignore it and I don't know, do whatever it takes. But for me, what really got me through it was trying to embrace the trauma and understand it. And
Sure.
it's the hardest thing to go through. You got to relive it. You know how it is when you're in a what they call PTSD, hyperarousal states, whether it's flashbacks, body memories, nightmares, whatever,
Right.
and you re-experience it. It's not an easy walk to walk through that. A lot of people can't. You have to have time. You can't be in survival mode. You take a whole lifetime. And what happens is, from 12 step, a guy could be a sponsor or a woman. Then you hear later they binged and they committed suicide. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm not saying there actually AA, is not perfect in any way, right? And a lot of people have problems with AA, and it doesn't work for everybody.
True.
But prior to AA, the recovery rate for people who were suffering from alcoholism was very low, right? People who are like real alcoholics and who could quit and live normal lives, like I don't even know what the percentage is, but very, very low. And after AAA, it's quite a bit higher, but that doesn't mean everybody makes it. Not everybody makes it, but it's just, I think I'm just talking about more of the model of AA and
I think it's great.
I've never experienced anything like it, and it seems, it's magic. On some level, it's kind of magical to me. That there is no, there's no leader, there's no treasury, nobody's investing in, the stock market to try and fund AA. You know what I mean? Like there's none of that going on. It's just a very pure idea. It still is a very pure idea. And so I don't know. I think the only way for us to get out of this mess is to embrace an idea like that is, somewhat I don't know how to really describe it. It's not religious necessarily, but that you have kind of these standards of like there's no money involved, there's no leadership involved, right? There's no power politics involved. It's just, it's truly just organic cells of people getting together and helping each other. And it's the only way I can really see us kind of starting to solve this problem. Or to get better as a society, or to get out of the trap that we have built for ourselves. Maybe.
Oh, I agree. Have you ever heard Gabor Mate talk?
I know who he is, but I'm not really familiar with his work, honestly. I don't know why. I just haven't really heard a lot of his stuff.
It's all about the trauma that we're experiencing in our society, and that, adjusting to it, and coping with it sometimes is like a maladaptation, for lack of a better word. It's so traumatic, and we get dummied down, through the media, through alcohol and drugs or whatever, distractions, football. Well, not that there's anything bad with any of these in particular, but people can get absorbed in those as an escape. You know what I mean? Whatever. And very interesting work. And I can't describe it like him. I wouldn't even try. But I do enjoy watching his videos. He's on YouTube and stuff.
I'll have to check him out. I've actually seen a lot of people talking about him lately, but I'm like, who is this guy that everybody's talking about?
Yeah.
I'll just check it out.
Yeah. Amen.
Cool.
All right,
well, thanks, Willem. Appreciate you calling.
Yeah, same here, bud. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. That about does it for me. I'm sorry I missed some topics I wanted to talk about today, but that's how it goes. We end up going down all kinds of different roads, and we end up where we end up. So I will see you all tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you all for hanging out with me on YouTube, Rockfin and Colin. I appreciate you all. And until next time, peace.